Name is Juno Lucita, and your name?
My name is William L. Glover. I'm the CEO of Cataclysm Comics.
Awesome. So maybe we can just start off with you telling me a little bit about yourself and your company.
All right. Well, Cataclysm Comics basically started back in September the 16th of 2017. It was kind of an accident. There was a memorial for Jack Kirby, and somebody had posted up in one of the nerd groups that I was a part of. Wouldn't it be cool if we drew a bunch of Jack's characters in in honor of him? And I put up, I think it would be more of an honor if we created our own characters. And then I said, I think it would be even cooler if we all got together, formed our own comic company, and did our own stories ourselves. And so many people was like, yo, that's a good idea. They started jumping in my inbox. Next thing you know, I'm being pressured to start my own comic book company. Now, I've loved comics ever since I was 13 years old. When I got sick one time, my mother went to a drugstore to get some medicine for me, and she brought back a Thor comic, and I read that, and I fell in love with it, and I've been with comics ever since.
That's awesome. Just really great. But what inspired you to try to become a writer?
Writing has always been my thing. I love telling a great story. I would write everything when I was younger, little short stories, poetry, everything from PG-13 to erotic, erotic fantasy stuff. And I would just like call up a random family member and be like, "Hey, you want to hear the story that I wrote?" And I'd read it, and they'd be like, "Yo, that was really good," or whatever. And ever since then, I've been in love with writing. I love writing. I love art. I love telling a great story and looking at beautiful pictures. So it's kind of a marriage, there, writing the story and then bringing about how the story looks. It just looks great to me. I just love it.
And do you have any memorable experiences from your time working in this industry?
You said memorable. Um, okay. Yeah. I have a few things like my first time selling the comics. I've done like a, pop up where here in Pittsburgh they have a few places where you could just pop up and sell stuff. So I would bring like a card table and like a tablecloth, and now we have a runner with our logo on it. Now I don't know if you can see the shirt, but Cataclysm Comics logo. So I would just go out, set up on the side of the road, and when people go walking by, I would pitch comics to them and everything. Hey, check out our comics. We've got a great, I do my salesman thing while I'm out there, and that's always been a lot of fun. Going to comic conventions are great. Talking and interacting with the fans are great. Just getting our names out there. So it's been a lot of the work that I do is actually fun, and I go out there and I talk to business owners trying to get sponsorships. I talk to comic companies to try to put the comics out in their stores, and it's just a lot of fun interacting with the people and doing a lot of stuff. So that to me is very memorable. Just going out and interacting with the fans and making new fans and making new friends.
And how often do you go to these events?
I try to go every time they come around, whether as a fan or as somebody who's out there selling. It's kind of hard sometimes to get into these venues as a vendor sometimes. So sometimes I'll just walk around with a backpack full of comic books with my shirt on. And I'll be like, "Hey, my name is William Glover. I'm the representative of Cataclysm Comics. We sell comics as well. Let me show you a few comics." And I'll pull them out of my bag, show, the vendors. I'll show some people walking around or whatever, and try to make sales or just try to get people interested in what we've got going on. So I try to go as often as possible. There is one coming up June the 1st and the 2nd, which is the Three Rivers Comic Convention at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. and I'll be there as a fan walking around, probably trying to hawk some more comics.
And when you're writing your comic books, how do you approach character development in your comics, and how do you decide when to make changes to an established character?
Well, as far as the development of characters, I try to pay attention to what goes on in real life. I'm trying to have a very diverse cast of heroes for our comics. Um, so I look at people. I do what's called people watching sometimes. As is where you just sit down and just watch people, just watch their actions and interactions with each other, their daily lives, just going on about their business. Sometimes I take notes or whatever, and I'm like, okay, well, this character has sort of a stutter. This character forgets what they say all the time. This person burps every 5 minutes or whatever. And so sometimes I'll sit there and I'll look at the list and I'm like, this would be great for a character, you know. Then sometimes it's like I look at the world, I look at those who want to make changes in the world or whatever. For example, um, like we have a few transgender characters, that I put into, a few of the comics or whatnot. We have a few, gay characters. We have a few characters who are Catholic. We have a few characters who are Southern Baptist, So we try to do a wide range of characters during development, and I try to keep that in mind. So not every character is going to be, Caucasian. Not every character is going to be African American. We might have an Indian, we might have a Native American, so character development is part of my thing. I love creating stories and learning about different cultures and then adding these characters to them. And as far as making changes to develop characters, if we have a character that we feel is not doing well, or if we have a character that we feel needs fleshing out a little bit more, then yes, we'll go back in and we'll add more characteristics to that character so that they can stand out a little bit more and better.
Mhm. I definitely love diverse characters and things like that in my books. How do you approach world building and creating settings for your story?
Well, that's interesting. Simply because when I was younger and I would get bored, I would make up these stories within my mind to pass the time. And so a lot of my world building was done when I was a kid. So I've created an entire universe. And now it's like whenever we bring in new writers and artists or whatnot, they contribute to the universe that I've created. And sometimes we merge universes together. So, I'll be talking to some of the creators and I'll be like, hey, I have my own universe or whatever. In my universe, we have XYZ. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's merge them, you know. So what we're doing right now is taking all of our collective ideas, putting them together, creating our own unique universe. And like I stated, I've been doing that ever since I was a kid, just making up all these stories with all the heroes, the villains, and everything within my mind. And I decided to go with what I already created within my mind. And then on top of that, a lot of stories take place in New York for some strange reason. New York, Tokyo, stuff like that. You have Godzilla coming through Tokyo Wrecking Shop. Every alien invasion, every superhero thing has something to do with New York being destroyed. So I decided that the main focus of my universe would be Miami, Florida. It's something different. Nobody's really attacking Florida or destroying Florida that much or anything like that. So why not? Let's do something different than everybody else. And then from there, that's just where the main bulk of the action happens. But wherever any writer wants to put any of the characters, I'm for it. I let the writers, decide what they want to do with the characters, where they want the characters to go next, and even if they want to create their own country or their own world or whatever, they're free to do that as well.
That's awesome. And do you have a favorite comic book, whether it's one that you wrote or somebody else wrote?
um I used to love everything that had to do with X-Men. Any X title, period. Whether it was Wolverine, the X-Men, X-Force, X-Factor, anything like that, I was all over it when I was younger. I was a big Marvel fan, so almost anything that dealt with Marvel, but mostly the X-Men stuff. I loved all of that. And then I don't personally have any comics out just yet that I've written, but I do love Trillion, the story that we've got going on with Cataclysm Comics right now. So those are my two favorite right now.
That's awesome. I do think that X-Men is good comics as well. Personally, I like Spider-Man more though. Um,
Hey, I do
what do
too.
you hope readers take away from your comics?
What do I hope? Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what do you hope readers take away from your comics?
Oh, okay. I hope that readers can get a broader sense of the world that we live in when they take a look at the comics. It's kind of an escape from the real world, but at the same time, it's a reminder of the world as well. So whenever you read one of our comics, you know that we've got different races of people out there. We've got different religions of people out there. We've got different creeds. We've got different everything out there. So whenever you pick up our comics and everything, uh, it's sort of a reminder and a reflection of the world that we live in. And hopefully, it will help people be more mindful and be able to treat people with a little bit more respect once they understand a little bit more about, these different cultures, these different philosophies, these different thoughts, these different sexual orientations, and everything. So hopefully, we can use our comics to bridge the gap, you know, between
Mhm.
so many different diverse communities.
And how much research goes into creating your comic book?
Oh wow. Like I said, if I'm doing something about a specific character, for instance, let's say that they're Native American. That's just general uh the general what's the word I'm looking for? The general term of that character. There's a lot more to just that character than just being Native American. So it's like we have to figure out what tribe they come from. Are they on a reservation? How they are being treated by the United States government, and so forth. And all of that will give us everything that we need to know about building that character up. You know, a character can be Italian, and they can be gay. And how do their family treat them? Are they in the closet? Have they come out or whatever? So um we have to do a lot of research when it comes to different cultures, when it comes to different everything. You know, how just because one culture treats a certain group of people one way does not mean that another culture treats them the same exact way. You know, so that within itself can make a character heroic if you are going against the grain, against your culture, and you're standing, 2 feet down on a hill, you know what I'm saying? And just making sure that you're living the life that you want to live, no matter what anybody else says. That right there makes you a hero. So you can be gay in a whole community where nobody likes gays, but you refuse to change because that's who you are. You know. So yeah, there's
Definitely
a lot.
if it takes place in Florida.
Yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into a lot of our characters here.
That's awesome. And what do you think makes a successful comic book?
A successful comic book tells a great story. It gets you hooked. The art grabs you, but the story keeps you. So anytime that there's a great storyline involved, I'm all for it. If the comics just art and the story is horrible, it might be okay. But if the story matches the art, it's going to be a phenomenal comic. You know, it's going to be one that's going to catch your attention, and then when you read the story, it's going to hold that attention. So a great comic has substance. It has meaning behind it. It's not just for entertainment. So that's just how I feel about
That makes a lot of sense. I definitely feel a similar way. And when it
Mhm.
comes to feedback and criticism from readers, how do you handle that?
Well, we're trying to get that. So far we've only had like we haven't really had too much feedback. We've placed in our comics a letter page with our email on it for people to write and post their grievances and tell us whether they like the comics or not. Most of the people say that they love the comics. We've only got like one review on our website where somebody gave us like a 5-star review and said the comic was great. Um, I think we've had maybe about two people who stated that there were some things about the comics that they didn't like. So whenever we get like a negative feedback type of thing, I bring it to the creators, let them know what was said so that we can try to avoid doing that within the future. So it's nothing like we're sitting there saying, "Oh my God, they say our comic book's horrible." Oh, when we break down and start crying or anything. No, we take that, we learn from it, and we build something better for future issues.
Definitely it's a way to go about it. And what tools or resources do you use during your writing process?
Tools and resources. Oh, my computer. I will sit here and I will Google. Google is your best friend. And I will Google as much as I possibly can. I will find out as much about different cultures or whatever I'm writing about at that time. If there is a subject I don't know anything about, Google is there. So most of the time it's just my Google and just real people. Like I said, sometimes I'll just be walking around and just paying attention to what other people are doing and just keeping mental notes or sometimes jotting down stuff that people are doing. And then whenever I want something interesting to add to a story or whatnot, I'll just look at the notes of what I have of what real life people have done and use those for characters sometimes. So I would say my best resources are my computer, Google, and real life people.
That makes sense. How do you stay organized and manage your deadlines?
Well, right now we don't have any deadlines. Right now we're just trying to get comics out as best as we possibly can. Um, we are very low as far as having finances to get stuff together. So whenever somebody can get a comic out, we try to get it going as much as possible. Um, that's just the best way to explain that.
Do you ever get writer's block?
I used to. Now it's kind of weird because stories just flow out of my head. Sometimes I regurgitate what I made up within my head when I was younger. Um, and it just comes out like a flowing river. And then sometimes I do have a little block. And if I do, like I said, I'll have like the notes of what people have done or whatnot, or something interesting that I may have seen, while out in the city, or visiting somewhere else or whatever. So it's like if I'm writing a story and I need a particular villain, but I need to make a new one and I have a block, then I'll start looking at some of the weird stuff that I've seen people doing. And I'm like, okay, that will make an interesting character there. So that will help me to create this character now that I needed. If it's a specific place, okay, I don't know much about this place. It's time to go to Google, time to do some research or whatnot. And once I get enough information about that place, then I'm like, okay, cool. Now I've got all these fresh new ideas flowing through my head. I can continue writing. But the majority of the time, stuff flows. And if something doesn't seem right, like I said, I just go to Google, look it up, and make my corrections. So that usually helps me
I
out with like,
It's definitely a way to go. And yes, Google definitely is a best friend. Um, can you describe your collaboration process with artists, editors, and any others?
well, as far as the writers are concerned, I let writers pretty much write whatever they feel. We have a rule that states like no hate speech or anything of that nature, but they can write basically whatever they want to write. Artists have different requirements. Some artists like to work alone. Some artists like to work with a writer, so they'll know. Uh, in the script it says this character's wearing blue. Do you want them to be a specific color of blue, cyan, sky blue, ocean blue, what? So sometimes they have to work with the writer to try to figure out exactly what the writer wanted when they wrote the script. So sometimes they'll work together or whatnot. Editors, I send the script to them. They sit there, they read over the scripts, they find all the misspelled words and anything that shouldn't be in the comic and have it removed. Then it comes back to me, and I glance it over one more time to make sure that everything is finalized the way that it needs to be, and get ready to put it together, send it to the artist. So we have a huge community right now of writers, artists, and editors from all over the world. And we just email each other, inbox each other, and just talk to each other through the chat and try to get as much stuff done on a collaborative front as we possibly can.
And how do you all keep up with trends and challenges in the comic book world?
Trends and challenges within the comic book world. Right now, one of the biggest challenges is simply that if you're in the comics to make money, then you need to leave right now. Basically, if you're in comics, it's supposed to be for the love of the comic. And one of the challenges that we do have is making enough money financially to try to, keep the ball rolling. Granted, we only have one series of comic out at the time right now. But once we get several series out, then we should be able to generate enough money to finally get the ball rolling and get stuff going. We have sponsors that we have tried to reach out to, and nowadays a lot of local businesses don't want to sponsor you. They have their own issues and their own financial challenges that they're dealing with, and that's understandable. But that's a big challenge that we have right now is just financial issues at this point in time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I heard similar from other comic book writers as well about that. Um, can you discuss the role of social media and digital platforms in promoting your work?
Yes. I advertise on Facebook like a madman from time to time. We have comics, we have merchandise like t-shirts, we have mugs, we have all types of stuff. And I will advertise on Facebook, which in turn, uh, it automatically advertises on Instagram as well. So, whatever I put on Facebook shows up on Instagram and now on Threads as well. Sometimes we try to advertise through Twitter, now known as X. And so it's not as lucrative as we would like it to be, though. Um, we advertise on all of these social platforms, but now it's gotten to the point where they're like, all right, you're advertising, cool. In order to boost this for more people to see, you have to pay XYZ amount of money now. So it's become more commercial to try to do a commercial through like Facebook and Instagram and so forth. So if you want more people to see it, you do have to pay in order to have that happen. But it does, every once in a while run across certain people who are interested in what we're trying to sell. And every once in a while we do, garner customers. So there's that. So we definitely use social media in order to get the word out.
Mhm. That's honestly my favorite way to get things out there. Have you tried maybe posting into groups? I've heard that that was a great way using social media to promote things.
If the group allows it. There are some groups that are like, hey, we don't allow spam, we don't allow advertisements, we don't allow this, that, and the other within our group. So it depends on the group that you're trying to advertise through.
Can you discuss any upcoming projects or collaborations you're excited about?
Oh boy, we've got a lot. I've just recruited a bunch of artists and just assigned them to a lot of projects. Currently, the project that we have right now is Trillion. Um, Trillion basically is about a young lady who was left for dead in a hit and run, and a rich guy. That's the nice way of putting it. He's really not a nice guy. He comes along. The family is very poor. This young lady is about to die. He's like, "Hey, if you sign this contract, I can save her life." The family signs the contract immediately because who doesn't want somebody to come and save their loved one? They didn't read the fine print. The rich guy puts $1 trillion worth of cybernetics within her body, saves her life, but now she's indebted to him to pay back the $1 trillion by going on all of these different missions for him. So it's kind of a social commentary on how capitalism works, how somebody can capitalize on the pain of someone else, how rich people look down upon the poor and how they treat the poor and so forth. But deep down, it's a pretty good commentary. Next up, we have a comic called Samson the Mighty that is supposed to be coming out sometime soon. Uh, and yes, it's based off of Samson from the Bible. Let's just say that he survived after destroying the temple, and he's immortal, and he's still around here, just doing what he needs to do to get to get stuff done. We have Silver Bullet, which is a very offbeat comic written by Stephen Saint Amand from Canada, and it's very offbeat. It's sort of a spy story, but it also has a lot of monsters involved, a lot of cryptids involved, a lot of strange happenings, and people with superpowers and whatnot. So that should be a very fun ride. So those are some of the projects that we have in mind to try to get out at this point in time.
Those seem very entertaining. Maybe I would get them and read them myself. They seem very fun to read.
Yeah, you should.
Um, can you walk us through the process of pitching a comic book idea to a publisher?
Uh, well, me personally, I'm very approachable. Like I said, most of the times I let my writers do whatever they want. So they come to me, they're like, "Hey, I got an idea for this, that, and the other." I'm like, "All right, cool, do it." And I'm very easy. Other publishers, on the other hand, I've never really had to try to pitch to them before because I pretty much have always had Cataclysm Comics. I've always had my own. So I never really had to pitch to like Marvel or DC or Image or anything like that to try to find out what their process is. My thing is bring me a good story. Let's try to do something different because really there's nothing new under the sun. And let's just put it out there and see if it works. So anytime that any of my writers come to me and they're like, "Hey, I got an idea for a story," cool, send me a copy of the script. If I like it, go. I'm very simple.
That's great. And what are your thoughts on the future of comic books in the digital age?
I just can't wait until holographs become a thing and we can actually interact with our characters. I think that would be great. Digital, we have a few digital comics on our website that people can purchase or whatnot. And I think that digital, while cool, is not necessarily the way to go. I love actually having a physical comic in my hand and holding it. I'm like Stan Lee in that respect. Give me a comic, let me flip through it, let me smell the pages, let me read the story and see everything more than just holding it in my hand on a phone and scrolling up. So I believe that the future of digital comics is bright. However, there nothing beats actually holding a physical comic in your hand and reading it.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that part. I definitely love holding like books and comics in my hand and reading it that way rather than digital.
Hmm.
Can you discuss any insights into the business side of being a comic book writer?
The insights into being a comic book writer. Let's see. First off, uh, familiarize yourself with writing scripts. Um, Go online and look up comic book scripts so that you'll know how they're written. They're different than screenplays, um, and just different than anything else that you ever would write. For instance, um, comics have what's called panels, so you have to describe what's happening in each individual panel, and you also have to come up with the dialogue, what the characters are saying to each other. Um, if there's a specific color that you want to use for a superpower, make sure to put that in there. He has green laser beams that come out of his eyes or whatever. Because not only are you telling the story, but you're describing everything to the artist so that the artist can, you know, convey what you've written on paper in artwork. So be as descriptive as possible. Sometimes there are some writers who like to leave it open to the artist's interpretation. But I would say just look up scripts, familiarize yourself with that, and then after that, just be as creative as you possibly can. The sky's the limit to whatever story that you want to write. Be as creative as possible, and you know, do your research. That's best advice that I can give for anybody who's aspiring to be a writer.
What do you think are some common misconceptions about the comic book industry?
Oh, it's kind of like how they would say like video games would rot your mind, like back in the day, how they used to say that comics were bad for kids or whatever. No, if anything, they spark imagination and creativity. Comics, have gotten a bad rap because a lot of people are like, oh, well, kids are reading comics for just the pictures or whatever. And while that may be a little bit a part of it, there are some people who credit comics to learning how to read. Some people would be like, okay, they put a book in my hand, this boring thing with just nothing but words or whatever. I'm not going to read that as a kid. But as a kid, you see all these colorful uh, designs and characters and everything come to life. Then you want to read and find out what's going on as a kid, and it spurs you on to learn more about reading and to become a better reader. So, the misconceptions about comics is that it's bad for kids, it's bad for your brain. No, it sparks imagination and it helps people learn how to read. And that to me is a win for comics.
Mhm. I agree. What do you think sets your writing style apart from others in the industry?
Oh, my writing style is all over the place. I don't have a specific style. So it's like, it's just based off of the character. Like, for instance, if you're writing a Daredevil comic, then you want to write something that focuses on street level crime. It's gritty, it's in your face, it's more adult, more mature in the wording and the actions of the characters. Whereas if you're writing something like, I don't know, Captain America, it's not as dark. It can be gritty, but it's more of a spy from another time who's simply trying to make it in this world. And all of these fantastic superheroes are around him now. The world has changed now. So now you've got the right to reflect that. Yeah, he's from like the 40s, the 50s, or whatever. How does looking at a big screen TV that's flat affect him? You know what I'm saying? He's used to these big old monstrous televisions from back in the day that were only in black and white, you know. So now you've got to write how that would affect him mentally, you know. So that would mean that you would have to get into his head. So it's different writing styles for different books that you write. And me personally, I've written several different issues. I just need to get them published and get them out there to the public. So my writing style is tailored to whatever I'm writing, what type of story I'm writing, who I'm writing about, what I'm writing about. It's just tailored to that. So I don't have a specific style. I'm more of a chameleon when it comes to, that sort of thing. It just depends on the type of character I'm writing about.
That makes sense. And now we're down to our last two questions. What platforms do you think are best for publishing comic books?
Um, right now, I am publishing through a company called Morris Publishing. Um, we also put our digital comics up on our website, and then of course, once we get the physical comics, we take them out and we sell them wherever, comic shops, just wherever you can get comics out at. So a lot of people do like digital comics, so they would go to places like I don't know, Webtoon or something like that to read digital comics. But to buy physical comics, people go to Amazon, they go to websites and buy them off of there. Um, just wherever you can think of to get a comic book from. I'd say, hey, whatever you feel like doing, Amazon or anywhere really. A comic belongs wherever people would go to find magazines, books, like they used to back in the drugstores or at Walmart or whatever, wherever it's easily accessible to grab. So I say all platforms. Let's get the comics out there. Let's get people reading.
Mhm. The last question was, where can we find your comic books at?
You can go to capitalismcomic.com and download digital comics from there. It's only $5 for the digital copies. Physical copies, you can inbox me. I am William L. Glover on Facebook. You can inbox me, and I will give you instructions on what you need to do in order to purchase a physical copy of the comic, and we can send it to you. You can purchase Trillion issue 1 off of Amazon, and on top of that, we also have it. Let's see. Also have it on a website called our it's hard to pronounce. That's why I was trying to find the comic with the website on it. But it's called artithmeric.com. You can find it on there. Um, and we are at this point right now where we are trying to sell enough comics so that we can raise enough money to make enough copies to send to distributors so that they can send them out to comic shops all over the world. So right now, those are the best places to find them. Also, there's a link on my website. There's a link on my page on Facebook. It's a link tree link. You just click on that, and that'll take you to most of the different sites where you can find our comics.
Awesome. And thank you for meeting with me today.
No
That was
problem.
all the questions I had. So goodbye to the people on live stream.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for checking in.